Today we're going to be taking a look at AMD. This is Advanced Micro Devices Inc., ticker symbol AMD, trading on the NASDAQ. This is StockerFinance, and I'm your host, David Scheuer. Follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/StockerFinance. Again, that is twitter.com/StockerFinance for more information. Now, what I'm going to talk about here is why AMD is trading flat over the past year, just about. I'm doing a slightly different type of video here. I'm trying something new rather than doing the traditional slides, so stick with me if there's a bit of some hiccups throughout the video. But anyways, over the past year or 6 months especially, you'll see that AMD is about down 5.6%. Over the past year, AMD is still up about 50%. Over the past month, AMD is trading down 3%. In the past 5 days, we've seen AMD in a decline down about 8%. However, over the past 5 years, AMD is still up over 2,000%. Incredible return, just by no mean, it might be slowing down in the very short term here over the past year or so, or even the past just about 6-7 months. But over the past 5 years, investors have seen an incredible return. AMD is currently trading with a market cap of just under $100 billion, 95.26 as of today, with a PE ratio of 33.28. Now let's go ahead and compare it to NVIDIA here. If you look at AMD or NVIDIA's stock here, it's trading at $336 billion with a PE ratio of 84, significantly higher PE ratio than that of AMD. AMD actually appears to be slightly undervalued now, and we go ahead and take a look at its fundamentals, especially comparing it to NVIDIA. If we compare it to Intel, it might not seem as undervalued, but when we compare it to NVIDIA, there's a really interesting thing going on here. However, that's not really what we're talking about today. Today, we're talking about why AMD is trading flat and whether it's going to break out to the moon or it's going straight to the dirt in the long term. And the key there is long term. This is going to be by no means a short-term play over the next few days or anything like that. This is going to be over the next couple of years. And the main reason we're seeing a decline in AMD's price over the past few months, and especially the past few days, is primarily due to three different reasons. Number one, the Fed interest rate is still incredibly lower. That's really all the interest rate's going to stay low for a long time. That's affecting the entire market. On top of that, we have a chip shortage in the U.S., and it's really highlighting the U.S.'s supply chain issues here. And on top of that, we also have probably the primary reason, which is Biden's new tax plan, especially the capital gains tax hike, which caused tons of people to go ahead and start selling off their stock to avoid these taxes before they are fully enacted. A lot of people were trying to avoid these taxes and their capital gains, especially all the elderly people who have tons of retirement funds locked up. They have all their money, receiving dividends, and they're going to sell all that because they want to retire or whatever it is, especially the entire boomer generation. And so that's really what's going on here. Those are the three primary reasons. Now, is AMD, because it's trading flat or declining in price right now, at least its stock price, does that mean fundamentally AMD's struggling at all? No, not at all. In fact, AMD's, I think, in one of the best positions it's ever been in, and I think it's set for success. Let's just go ahead here and let me move this really quickly. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and just take a look at AMD's operating income here. AMD did $3.4 billion in revenue in over the last quarter. That's an incredible increase. And year over year, that's about over a 90% increase. If we go ahead and take a look at its net income here, you'll see it's at over 200% increase. It did $555 million in net income. And don't worry about Q4 here. They had some tax things going on there. That's why they had about $1.4 billion, I believe, in tax. But if we get rid of that, that is about, 300 million or so? It's about 300 million. So we saw growth quarter over quarter without that tax rebate, or I forget the exact terminology for it, my bad. We're also seeing profit margin continue to grow, at least compared to this quarter here. I know this one's all distorted because of those that little discrepancy there. But again, 16% profit margin here with a growing operating margin to 19%, as well as a continually growing gross margin, although on a year-over-year basis, gross margin remained relatively flat. Look at operating expenses continue to climb, but nowhere near as fast as revenue, which is growing at 92% right now year over year, compared to that of operating expenses only growing at 44%. And its cash on hand continues to rise as well, $1.7 billion. And on top of that, I want to go ahead and check out this Reddit post here, because this is what's going to have, and what I'm kind of basing my video on. I think this is a really interesting Reddit post here from user Age in Rain or something like that. My bad if I'm pronouncing that right now. But he says, I'm wondering why AMD has been stuck in the range of 75 to 95 for almost a year. If we go ahead and take a look at that here, you can tell that it's completely true. Over the past year, at least right here, from this point on about August, been in the 95 to 70-ish range here. And he said, as someone who's invested in the stock since 2017, this is nothing new. All you need to do is decide for yourself if the stock is overvalued or undervalued, which is a very, very awesome mindset to have, especially as a long-term investor. You need to simply look at the fundamentals of a company, look at the future and what you believe the intrinsic value is for that company. And then you have to compare it to the current price of the company and decide, okay, is this company fundamentally undervalued right now? Or is it fundamentally overvalued right now? In AMD's case, I believe it is fundamentally undervalued right now. I believe it should be trading above $100 billion market cap, especially with the Xilinx Corporation. And the average analyst recommendation, or average analyst price target, I should say, is over $100 for AMD, which might be slightly generous, but I think $100 per share is completely reasonable in the near future for multiple reasons. And let's go over this list that he wrote up here, this user on Reddit, because I think it's a very detailed list, and we're going to take a look at one more article as well after this, which highlights some good points as well for AMD. Lisa Su, and I went over a lot of this in my last analysis of AMD, but Lisa Su is just an incredible leader and CEO. She's doing so much for AMD, and I completely believe in the leadership. And Warren Buffett always says leadership is one of the most important qualities when you're, or just one of the most important factors when you're looking to invest in a company. You need to look at its leadership. Leadership can completely destroy a company. I mean, one person, one CEO can make horrible decisions and ruin what may have been a super successful company. And Lisa Su, she is not that type of person. She's definitely going to continue to lead AMD to victory because she's a great leader, not a bad one. Now, if you just take a look at AMD stock here, when Lisa Su took over October 8th, 2014, let's go ahead and check that out here. Let's see, October 8th, we can get kind of a rough estimate right here. Right, this is about, let's see, May or September, October. This is close enough here. The stock has increased 2,777%, slightly more than that most likely, especially if you look at its 52-week high here, or its all-time high, around $100. It's over 3,400% since Lisa Su became CEO October 8th, 2014. That is absolutely incredible. And if you look before that, AMD stock was actually in a decline since about 2006 and really just trading flat since then. So Lisa Su's completely turned the company around and done an excellent job with leading AMD. And, the stock price has followed that success as well. And we see that success in AMD's fundamentals, as I just showed you on hypercharts here. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at this list again. So on top of that, we have great implementation of the Zen road plan since the 2017s. I completely agree. It's already the king of the CPU space, and it's caught up pretty well to NVIDIA, not being stuck with its own foundries, which are extremely capital intensive, therefore risky. Ask Intel, that's true. Instead, relying on the best manufacturer out there. This is plausibly an issue, causing bottleneck of production, but remember, there is demand. The supply will eventually arrive. And let's go ahead and touch on that demand issue here. One of the problems that we had in the chip section with this chip shortage here is that, let me move this over a little bit, with the chip shortage is that AMD they can only make as much revenue as they're able to meet the demand. So you can have incredibly high demand, but if you can't meet that demand, then your revenue and your bottom line isn't actually going to increase, and your stock price is not going to follow that, since the stock follows the fundamentals of the company. At least it's supposed to. But anyways, that's an interesting thing, because for AMD, are they being able to meet that demand? Well, sort of. There's more demand than they can handle right now, as you've seen in the charts, we've seen due to the chip shortage. But the good thing is their revenue is continuing to increase as they continue to scale up and continue to attempt to meet that demand. And more demand is better than no demand. So I do not see that as a negative thing for AMD. But again, if they need to go ahead and continue to meet that demand, and as they meet more and more and expand their business, especially with the Xilinx Corporation, which will help with distribution efforts for AMD, what they're going to be able to do is take more and more market share away from Intel and away from NVIDIA, especially Intel, though, which they've been taking away market share continuously. Up until last quarter, they actually lost some market share to Intel in just a few of its segments. But even in the laptop space, AMD is taking market share from Intel. It's going to continue to do so over the next few years, which is, as an investor in AMD, makes me very bullish on this company. And I believe its intrinsic value is well above $100. But at least in the short term, or I guess short term for me, which is in the next year or two, I believe AMD's price target is around $100 or just over $100 per share, giving it a nice room to grow here from $78. Now let's continue to touch on this. They said unique GPU provider for Xbox and PlayStation. The new Xbox and PlayStation, AMD is providing chips to both of those. On top of that, crypto will probably never go away. Crypto has dramatically increased demand for the entire semiconductor industry. And the Xilinx acquisition, he touches on this a little bit, and he talks about the computing space as well as favorable industry trends, trusting, Mama Sue, et cetera, et cetera. And I completely agree with that. And I just want to touch on one more article here. I know this video is, I'm kind of just rambling on here, but that's just because I don't have too much time to make this video, and I felt it was important to get out and just a really interesting video to make for me. So this is one thing, just an article, and let's go ahead and highlight the author here, Bill Maurer. If you can read that, I want to give him credit here. They go ahead and say, perhaps the most impressive part of the report, and he's talking about the last quarterly report, is how much AMD has changed financially in recent years. The company has been burning cash for a while and even burned through $120 million in a year ago period. Thanks to significant jump in profitability, AMD actually delivered $832 million in free cash flow in Q1 2021. We can go ahead and check that out here. I don't know if they actually have cash flow on this. Whatever. We'll go back to the article here. He's touching on it enough. You can go to AMD's investor relations if you really want to get that information correct, or if you just want to double check it there. But anyways, the AMD delivered $832 million in free cash flow in Q1 2021. The company has thus gone from a net debt position a few years ago to a balance sheet that could have over $3 billion in net cash by the end of the current quarter. And that's not even counting any cash that comes from the Xilinx deal, which will be a pretty significant amount as well. AMD shares have been weak recently for two reasons. So he says the first is that the market sold off a little bit, primarily in the tech space, and that's used primarily due to the tax bills coming due soon. I already touched on that. It also has to do with some of the Fed interest rate, as well as just the chip shortage and supply chain issues going on right now. And the second reason is seen in the chart below, is we saw the dreaded death cross occur, and I prefer to avoid technicals, so I'm going to go ahead and skip this here. That's just how I invest. I'm not a technical investor. I'm a fundamental investor. Some people love to look at technicals. I personally don't believe technicals really. I could rant on for a while about that, but I'm not going to. So anyways, he also said, AMD delivered spectacular results, not only beating handily, but raising guidance for the full year. They raised it from 36% to 50%, which is absolutely incredible. And yeah, they've absolutely come a long ways. I just thought I'd highlight some of that, though, as this article gave a few reasons into AMD and its success into the future, which I completely agree with. So when will AMD's breakout occur? When will this happen? I personally have concluded that I believe AMD will have a breakout in the near future, despite trading downward or despite trading relatively flat between the $70 and $95 range. There's no telling when this will happen. It's almost impossible to know, but we can highlight a bunch of different things, especially such as all of the new events coming up, the new product launches coming. There's a lot happening in May. We have the investor relations or investor annual meeting coming up here. There's a lot going on, and we can go ahead and take a look at this catalyst timeline. This Reddit is awesome, by the way. They do a great job of just highlighting and compiling all this different information. So let's go ahead and go down to right here in the May area, or about at May 5th. It's May 5th today, so let's go ahead and look how much is coming up here. The AMD annual meeting of stockholders, that's May 19th. They'll announce a bunch of stuff then. She's giving, Dr. Lisa Su is the CEO of AMD. She's giving a keynote presentation. I don't expect too much from that. I mainly expect a lot from the annual meeting of shareholders, which is they're going to give a lot of information that'll definitely impact the stock price and just AMD's, future and where it's heading as a company. But then you can just go ahead and take a look at all the different events coming up, as well as all the different launches for its products in the next couple quarters. There's just so much information coming up for it. Here's the expected completion in 2021, the end of this year, for the AMD Xilinx merger, which again will significantly help AMD in terms of distribution. A lot of people were kind of 50-50 on the acquisition of Xilinx. I personally think it was very expensive, but I think long-term it will help AMD. Anyways, guys, this is StockerFinance. I'm your host, David Scheuer. I hope you enjoyed this brief video and analysis, or I wouldn't even call it an analysis, but rant about AMD and where its stock price is heading. Again, I'm just, this is entertainment. I'm not giving an investment advice here. But this is what I think about AMD. I'm incredibly bullish on the company. I think it has a very bright future ahead of it with its excellent leadership from Lisa Su, or Dr. Lisa Su, and its fundamentals are continuing to grow with over 200% increases year over year in net income. Its operating margin continues to increase, as well as its revenue growth. Saw 92% revenue growth year over year. It's going to continue to go ahead and continue growing into the future. They increased their revenue guidance to 50% over 2020. So I'm confident in this company. I believe they have a lot going on. I believe they're going to continue to take more market share away from Intel and the semiconductor industry as a whole, as AMD begins to, in my opinion, grow and dominate the industry, becoming one of the larger players in the semiconductor industry in the near future. Anyways, guys, this is StockerFinance, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.